Today we're talking about the role of humic acid in soil, which is important and therefore more interesting than it sounds. And we went to Ireland to do it, which is a different country. That's fun. And I thought Ireland was very beautiful. Hopefully I'll go back with a car one day to have a better look. What you're about to see continues our journey into regenerative agriculture, and I've made a playlist on the channel for these videos because they have become quite the saga. But to remind you where we left off, we visited Stephen Temple's regenerative dairy farm. Stephen was trying to maximise the efficiency of his inputs rather than achieve maximum output. And this makes a lot of business sense. It's reducing costs and therefore becoming more resilient, but there is a productivity trade-off. So next, following on from Stephen's recommendations, we're going to do some videos on soil and try and understand if this focus on biology is necessary, if it's something that has traditionally been missed in agricultural science, and if it means that there must be a trade-off with productivity. The thing we're talking about today specifically is a product called Powhumus, which is a potassium humate, a form of humic acid which is graded from lenodite or brown coal, and it does look just like coal. It's water soluble, and if added to water, it turns brown. I was given these sample sachets that look like the coffee you get in hotels, but if you add milk, it has remarkably little impact on the colour. Nevertheless, if added to soil, these humic acid products apparently have a whole host of benefits, which include improved yields, decreased costs, and I suppose from a large-scale macro perspective, reduced resource and energy use through improved uptake of nitrogen fertilisers, which goes some way to solving one of the unsolvable problems in the modern food system, which is that the modern population is reliant on nitrogen fertiliser. This is not a sponsored video. You will see that I approach it as a skeptic, and it does seem almost unbelievable that trace amounts of immature coal can be added to soil and allow an up to 50% reduction in fertiliser use. But we discussed this with Susan Wilson, who is a soil scientist selling this product, and Enda Horgan, a dairy farmer who applies Powhumus with his fertiliser and claims some genuinely remarkable results. But I learnt a lot from this conversation. I hope you enjoy it, and do keep an eye out for the automatic calf feeder in the background while we're talking. I thought it was weird being on a small dairy farm that was investing. You don't really get that in England anymore.
My degree is in soil science, which I did at Newcastle a long time ago. Nobody wanted soil scientists in those days. Now everybody's a soil scientist, whether they're qualified or not. And I came back to this about 10, 12 years ago. I run Aphaeas agriculture, and I am the agent for the Humintec range of soil conditioners and biostimulants. Humintec is a leading German SME. And they are one of the world leaders in humic acid technologies. The main on-farm product is called Powhumus. It is potassium humate, very high quality humate from Germany.
So these products are used on this farm. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the operation you've got going here?
We're milking 250 cows on more or less a grass-based system. So we'll start calving in the end of January, February time. Cows are out more or less full-time then till the end of November. Majority of our feed to the cows is all grass, supplemented with meal then where we need to give cows extra feed.
Yes, and you have milking robots with quite an intensive rotational grazing system. Would it be fair to say?
Well, I suppose so, yeah. So they're on an ABC system, so every 8 hours they're access to fresh pasture.
So as they go through the robot, they're redirected to a new thing. So they'll be milked about 3 times a day each, will they?
No. On the average, milkings will be 2.3 times a day in the springtime, and as lactation goes on, we're more or less for about the whole year, we're roughly at two milkings.
Right. Why do they go through the robot then, if they're not to be milked? Because they want to move.
They don't. They'll come in.
I see.
And they'll check the graze.
Try it on.
Try the grazer first to go out the fresh grass. So it's the fresh grass is enticing the cow in, and she'll know herself if she needs to milk. She'll go in and get milked and get nuts, and then go out the grass. We're milking here 10 years this year, and there's still one cow in the herd now for 10 years.
Right.
10 lactations in her.
Pretty good.
So we're at the average age of the cows here is 6.
The reason I brought you here is actually the Horgans would be one of my first customers. And originally the dairy farm, they added it to their slurry. But a few years ago, there was some foliar feeding trials in Wales, and now a lot of the farmers use the humate as part of a foliar feeding program with urea, and this is what is really instrumental in allowing the farmers to cut their nitrogen. You're just spraying it on, a mixture of a liquid urea and humate mix, and it's sprayed onto the grass. You've got to have at least 4 inches of green leaf, otherwise you're just wasting it, it's going on the land. 4 inches of growing grass, and it increases the uptake of the nitrogen. When you foliar feed, as we call it, probably about 20% of it will land on the soil, so that you're getting the long-term build-up of the humates, which leads to deeper rooting in your grass.
Yeah, so it benefits the soil in the long term and the plants in the short term.
Yes.
And allows you to use less nitrogen. How often do you apply these products? Is it like a...
So the nitrogen, there's a fertiliser, and you go and probably, see the way I just go around the whole farm, so we call the farm split into A, B and C paddocks, or A, B and C blocks. So you can start an A and do maybe 10 or 15 acres there, move into your B block and do another maybe 30 acres there and 30 acres in the C block. So you're in every block every week. What we can see is we've reduced our nitrogen, and we are measuring how much grass we grow, and we're growing the same tons of grass.
Yeah, so same tons, but about halving the nitrogen, is it?
On silage ground and by a third on the grazing ground.
No, it's nitrogen that is toxic. Nitrogen is the bogeyman in agriculture. It's the one that does all the damage to the soil. It is shown that there is a dead zone around a nitrate molecule in the soil, and ammonium is particularly toxic to soil biology. Kills all the earthworms, and so it's only right that farmers should cut their nitrogen.
What you're selling is sort of a regenerative product, I would say. So it's sort of slightly different from the traditional, nutrient balance mode of soil science, would you say? But it's not woo-woo.
No. Well, the thing is, these products allow you to cut your inputs, but maintain your output. Or even if you get a good growing year, you might even increase your output. But there's no compromise on yields when you start incorporating these products into your regime.
Having looked into humic acid, on Wikipedia, which obviously you could criticise as a source, they say that the scientists don't completely understand how it's formed or the function of it.
It's decomposed organic matter. But you have brown coal and you have black coal. Now, the highest grade of brown coal is known as leonardite, and that has the highest percentage of humic acids. And that's the grade that is selected by Humintec at the mines in Grevenboich for processing. Right. So that, but it is a very, very complex organic. I mean, you could probably analyse it for 100 years and never actually get to the bottom of its very highly complex organic molecule. What the humates do is they stimulate the root exudates. They act externally, and the root exudates are acidic, and that's what they dissolve the nutrients from the soil. So they improve nutrient uptake.
So it's mined out of the ground. It's essentially coal, but a bit younger than coal that you would burn. As you say, it's too complicated to completely understand. Why is it not understood? Like you're trying to sell something without completely understanding it, perhaps?
Well, it's not that it's not understood. I just think the organic chemistry is so complex that it's particularly difficult to analyse. I'd love to be able to say it's a simple, chemical compound like calcium sulfate or,
Yeah, but when you say humic or fulvic acid, you don't mean like one single molecular structure. You mean like a whole host of different things.
Yes.
Yeah. So as such, it can't be manufactured because it's something that does occur naturally.
Yes, yes.
And it's in different grades. So if you were to spread it on your field, you're not putting fertiliser on the field as such. You're allowing what's already in the soil to be taken up more effectively.
Hopefully, yes. The Germans had a long history of actually using brown coal. It was used, I think it was used in the porcelain industry, and it was only in the 50s that it was discovered by accident to have these biostimulant properties. I don't quite know the whole history, but it was obviously a scientist called Leonard who suddenly realized that his plants were growing a lot better and started looking into it. So there's actually two different grades. Humic acid is like the catch-all term. But within that, we have what we call humates, which are extracted with potassium hydroxide. It's like black sand, big molecules, alkaline, and it's the soil conditioner. Acts externally, they're not taken up by the plant at all, but what they do is they act as powerful soil conditioners. They coat sandy particles in light soils and improve the CEC of a light soil and the nutrient retention. And in a heavy clay soil, they will actually open up the clay particles so that you get better drainage and better aeration. But more importantly, if you've got a soil that is low in soil humus, the soil humus complex is what makes the soil stable. That's what adds stability to the soil. So humus is important from that perspective. So if you've got a soil that's got degraded or run down, the humic acid is a shortcut to restoration, if you like. Otherwise, it can take you years of applying farmyard manure and slurry to get your land back to full health. And actually, you probably see more benefit on poor soils than good soils. People say to me, which fields shall I use it on first? And I say, your worst fields. The other grade is fulvic acid. It's extracted from different grade of brown coal. It's extracted with sulfuric acid. Our Fulvital is a complex mix of fulvic acid and fulvate salts. Again, very, very complex organic molecules. But they are tiny molecules and they can actually enter the plant. So they are the plant treatment. They are used a lot as an accompaniment with fungicides, trace elements, because they chelate both the fungicide and the trace element and get it into the plant and make them more effective. So there's two different types of product. Fulvic acid actually can be extracted from groundwater. Peaty water will have fulvic acid in it, but it's a simple fulvic acid.
But if you spread muck on a field, you're going to have many tons of it. You'll have a big pile that you spread, and you can visibly see it on the ground. But with this, presumably you have your sprayer that you're fertilising with, and you just put a bag of it in with the spray. Yeah. Right. Well, in order to build humus, that's matter that's collected in the soil, surely. What is the matter that becomes present after this is applied? Do you know?
Well, it's I mean, the key with humates is little and often. You just it builds up slowly. It builds up slowly. Like the humates don't go anywhere when they're in the soil other than get incorporated into the soil structure. They don't leach, they don't evaporate, they don't do anything. They get incorporated into the soil structure. So they're there forever unless you start doing...
So they're sort of inert in that sense, but then they do have a function interacting with the plant biology.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, by stimulating the root exudates. That's where they work on the plant.
So root exudates is an external... I'm out of my depth, as you can tell. It's an external function of the plant.
Yes. That enables it to take it on. But apart from stimulating the root exudates, and we've done this work in pot trials at Aphaeas up in Northern Ireland, you can see that plants treated with Powhumus, they have a much more extensive rooting system than untreated plants. And of course, the more roots you have, the more nutrients it can take up. So there's that side effect, as well as the root exudates, which dissolve the nutrients from the soil matrix and improve uptake that way.
And with the humates, so they're mined from coal, or brown coal. Does a similar thing occur sort of naturally with traditional mixed farming. If you have a healthy amount of organic matter in the humus within the soil, traditional farming, would that function in a similar way, or are you adding something?
It does, but you know, even with soils that are already rich in organic matter, if you add the Powhumus, you're getting the bio-stimulant benefit.
And that wouldn't exist ordinarily, would it?
Not really, no.
Is this because the fulvic and humic acid in manure is too simplistic?
There is no humic acid in farmyard manure. It hasn't rotted. I mean, you only start to get humics and fulvics once you start getting really well rotted compost and manure.
So it's sort of, in a sense, it's reconstructing, so regenerating literally soils that have depleted organic matter because they haven't been farmed with animals, say, so it's just been arable, and it will help speed up the... So could you restore the humus layer just with this, without animals at all? Do you think, like, could it replace organic matter as an input?
Look, I think it's one of the tools that are available to you, but it will shortcut the building of the organic matter, because if you put farmyard manure down or slurry, there's no humates in it. You know, you've got to wait for that to be you know, all converted into humus by the soil biology. So it's a shortcut, and it's one of the tools at your disposal. The accepted wisdom from soil scientists throughout the world is that you create the environment for your native biology to thrive by, you know, creating a good soil structure, and that's where these products come in. These very small molecules also act as food for the soil bacteria and stimulate the soil bacteria.
But then
and
surely
biology.
they would deplete over time. You said they stay there. If they're food for bacteria, do they not get eaten?
Well, that's why the benefits are always cumulative. I mean, wouldn't really recommend that, you know, once you get your soil back to full health, that you stop using them, because then you might start getting back into a situation of depletion.
So humic acid exists in soils naturally, does it?
Yes.
So if you went to a forest that hadn't been cultivated, there would be a healthy amount of humic acid within it?
Probably, yes.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's been lost through agriculture.
That's, yeah, I mean, like peat. Peat is not quite brown coal, but it will have a lot of fulvic acid and probably some humics in it too.
And then as land has been farmed, like probably in Britain over the past, you know, 100,000 years or whatever, that humic acid has been lost, and therefore more manures essentially are required to...
You probably couldn't grind up black coal and put it on your land.
Why?
Probably be completely insoluble. I mean, it would be, the whole point about the humic acid, the brown coal, is it will break down. I mean, we also sell prilled leonardite. It's completely unprocessed, it's completely natural, but it takes time to break down in the soil, whereas coal, a lump of coal probably wouldn't break down too easily.
Right. And so in using this, have you noticed that your soil, it is materially different?
Dug any holes recently? No, probably not.
No, well, so you want to be, to say that, you want to be digging test holes the whole time.
Right.
Or test holes every year, same place in every field every year to see.
Well, the
what physics change.
AHDB encourage. Did I not give you the soil health scorecard? And they do actually encourage you to monitor your soil health by taking a, you know, GPS point and digging a hole and counting the earthworms, and you know.
Well, that's one thing we do when we do dig. We do look for earthworms and see are they there, and then we'll be just looking for how much far down the root system goes on the plant.
And you've seen improvement or change?
Well, I couldn't tell you because I'm not doing enough to say that there has been an improvement in this plot and this field.
Right.
For the last 10 years, you know, it's not.
You're not monitoring it
not
enough.
monitoring enough. But what we can see is we've reduced our nitrogen, and we are measuring how much grass we grow, and we're growing the same tons of grass.
Have you noticed any change in your milk?
I suppose the urea in the milk, it's the amount of urea that is taken up by the grass, and it's in a high growing season, the grass will take up more nitrogen out of the soil, and then it'll show up in the milk, whereas the cow didn't digest it, it has to get rid of it through the milk. So if there's too much urea in the milk, that shows that there's too much urea going out on the grass. But even since we've reduced the amount of nitrogen we're putting out, you still do see spikes throughout the year with high nitrogen, even though we're still going at very low rates. Even now we haven't gone with nitrogen since the 10th of September was the last application on John. Now we're into November or October now. So
you've still got plenty of grass,
there's
that's
still
for
plenty
sure.
of grass, and it shows that it's still growing fairly well, that there is high urea in the grass, even though we put out very little throughout the season.
Well, of course, that is also one of the benefits of using Humates, that it actually sounds a bit daft. It extends the growing season. You get growth longer into the autumn, and also it will start earlier in the spring. That's the cumulative benefit of using Humates.
Yeah, so in improving the soil structure, it will preserve, liquid in the soil in a dry period, and vice versa.
Oh, another of my customers who had been using the products for a few years, they had drought. This was 2 or 3 years ago, and he said, I had lush green grass, and my neighbours were all burnt up because he had lovely. I mean, when I first went to this land, it was horrible, boggy, clay marl. When I'm back 3 years later, there was this beautiful loam full of lovely, rich soil, rich in humus. And it's the humus that's a sponge that holds on to the moisture in times of drought.
Do you think that's because of the humic acid?
Yes, because he had now had a soil rich in humus, and whereas before he had a soil that was low in humus, it was clay, there wasn't much, And the other thing is that once you start getting your soil working well, the dung beetles come back. The other farmer over in Westmeath, he said after 3 weeks you can't tell that the grass has been grazed. And also they eat the fly larvae. A customer in the Channel Islands phoned me one day. He said, something really weird's happened. He said, I forgot to spray the parlour for flies, and I suddenly noticed I've got no flies. He said, do you know why? I said, yes. I said, you've got dung beetles. So, there's lots and lots of, almost strange benefits that you can't quantify.
Yeah. See,
with us here, the other thing, the grass seems to be a bit sweeter, that because the cows have full access to the paddock, so they're not locked in the paddock, they can freely come out of it. They, like in around the dung pads, the land is tightly grazed, so they're not selectively grazing, they're grazing the whole paddock.
That's great, yep.
And they're not been made, they're given a paddock, and they are grazing it, they're not been pushed, gap closed and made grazed.
You will notice in grass that's been treated with Humates, the bricks content of the grass is higher, so it's much juicier. It's the sugar levels in the grass.
Okay.
So the cattle will always, farmers tell me, the cattle will graze the grass much more because it's sweeter and juicier.
Well, we would find out with the foliar feeding, but they eat everything, bar the thistles. So all the nettles, all the grass, everyone is eating bar the thistles. Yeah.
Bar the thistles, really?
Yeah.
Well, that in itself is an efficiency gain, isn't it? If they're eating stinging nettles for forage. What's interesting about this is that I think some of the regenerative methods that I've looked at have visibly looked different in a field. They'll have more weeds in, say, because they use less sprays and stuff like that. But in this instance, it just looks like a typical dairy farm in a sense. It's not. So it's sort of.
Well, it reduces our sprays because we're only spraying now for thistles or nettles, whereas we used to be spraying for dolphins, and it's very hard to kill a dog.
Really? You've really reduced your.
We don't need that because the cows eat them.
Well, they even eat the dolphins.
Oh, they'll eat so when you're going in at a 1500 cover, 6 inches or so to graze, and the dock is young, the cow will keep the dock at, and the dock never gets to a stage where it's gone to seed.
Right.
So the dock is sweeter now.
What I often used to see at home was that the fields would be full of Dawkins. He'd take silage off it, and then the cows would be fed the silage full of Dawkins, and then the slurry would go back out in the field. And the Dawkins were just multiplying exponentially.
Well, you can't kill a dock. You can't kill a dock root. You can kill them for a period of time, but they'll keep coming back. So.
But do you find if you keep weakening the roots that
well, so we're not at it, I suppose,
by grazing them all the time.
With the foliar, we're not at it long enough to know that.
Right.
But we give up spraying for docks now.
Right. Well, that's great news. And of course, some of the dock sprays kill the clover as well, so that kind of.
Well, that was the other reason why we weren't spraying for them, is because they kill all the clover. But now we don't have to. Before this, the cows wouldn't eat them because they were too sour.
Right.
Because the amount of nitrogen.
So it even makes tasty dogs. That's that's great news.
The dogs are high in protein.
Yeah. Yes, and because they're deep rooting, they've got lots of trace elements and minerals in them. Yeah. Great.
Well, it's almost too good to believe, isn't it?
Have you cut your concentrate use per cow? Quite a lot over the...
Well, I suppose we haven't really cut it that much, but what we have done is that we've increased production per cow. So we're getting more grass, less nitrogen, and more milk with the same meal, or a wee bit less meal.
Music to my ears.
Well, no, it is impressive.
But we're producing a higher quality silage to feed to the cow.
Yeah.
That we don't get the pica anymore. You know that the P deficiency in the in the cows, and P deficiency when the grass is growing in the summertime, there'll be a P deficiency in it, and then the cows eat the grass and they don't want to have enough P, so they go along and start eating stones.
Eating stones, yeah.
Eating banks out of it. So that's.
Did you used to have that problem? Yeah.
So it essentially improves cow health as well.
Yeah.
This, I think, is sort of part of the regenerative movement. But like the fundamentals of agriculture haven't really changed since, well, before the Roman times, but have been well established since the Roman times. Why do you think that, like, this sort of stuff is emerging now? Why weren't people doing it, 100 years ago?
Well, I don't know. Did they have any sprayers 100 years ago? If you think about it, a lot of the research comes out of New Zealand. They're research driven there.
I suppose the other thing is the environment. Everyone is pushing the environment, and we were looking for a way to reduce the nitrogen and get the same output.
But it's a cost as well, isn't it? I mean, it's. I'm sure you do want to protect the environment, but it's also just rational from a business perspective to reduce inputs, isn't it?
Yeah. And you can reduce inputs and get the same from less.
Do you get any sort of incentive here? I don't know about that. So this is.
But it's usually lots of stick and no carrot, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think that the reason this isn't pushed is because it stops people spending money on fertiliser, and as such?
Well, I think that
the
merchants really don't like these products that much because it will cut into their main fertiliser. Their fertiliser.
Yeah, I have noticed it in my coverage of groundswell and regenerative stuff, is that with people within the movement seem to really resent what they regard as big chemical companies moving into the space, which they think is because now they see that there is demand for these types of products. The big companies are trying to maintain a market share, so are moving into it.
The big chemical companies, like everybody else, they know they've got to move with the times. If you're an ammonium nitrate manufacturer and you think you're suddenly going to be selling half what you did before as a result of these products, then you bet it's a case of if you can't beat them, join them. So they want to start incorporating these products in their mixes so that they improve the efficiency of them, so they can retain their place in the market. Look, these are not fertiliser replacements, and they are not substitute for bad farming. I mean, when nitrogen fertiliser made everybody look like a good farmer because it made crops grow. But these are not substitutes. In fact, what they do is give good farmers an edge.
There is a chain of thought in sort of organic thinking that sort of says that modern agriculture is sort of It's almost like an agricultural industrial complex in the way that you have the military industrial complex, which is that we've sort of become addicted to these inputs that are all based on fossil fuels, and this is fundamentally unsustainable. Which is, I don't think it's inherent in that you could produce nitrogen fertiliser with renewable energy, so it could be done. But it does rely a lot on fossil fuels at the moment.
Well, they are trying to decarbonise a fertiliser manufacturer, and you know what's going to happen? Fertiliser prices are going to go through the roof.
Do you think?
As a result of it,
Yeah. I would
process.
argue, probably, having not thought about it that hard, that decarbonising fertiliser production is probably necessary for long-term sustainable agriculture, because we have to keep producing stuff. But we also need to be doing that sustainably, and I think the way you do that is decarb. Like, do you think that that will happen and just be a necessary additional cost? Or?
Well, I think the figures that I saw was that nitrogen fertiliser would double in price.
But you're halving the use in some
Yes, I'm
instances,
halving the
you see.
use, so it's, I mean, when fertiliser went through the roof a few years ago, I was selling this by the pallet load to farmers, not the bag. You know, not half a dozen bags, they were taking whole pallets of it because, you know, there were huge savings to be made. There was a case study farmer in Northern Ireland. Now, he bought a ready-made urea mix made with Powhumus. 2022, he spent exactly the same as he did in 2021 on fertiliser. But he only used 25% of the nitrogen that he had used. So he spent exactly the same, cut his nitrogen by 75%. It was a good growing year. He got comparable yields, and he even got better quality silage.
So that's what they're pushing here. That's what they're, every year, or every couple of years, they're reducing the amount of nitrogen we're allowed to apply.
Are they?
Yeah.
Right. Well, surely then people should be paying attention to this sort of stuff, and you sort of suggest that they're not.
Well, they're getting incentives to plant clover and plant multi-species.
It's strange because I feel like if the evidence for it exists, it's got to be relatively easy to communicate that. I mean, especially at a time like that. I don't know about it in Ireland, but in Britain, dairy farmers are really struggling all the time. So you'd think they'd be.
Well, of course, dairy is a huge part of the Irish economy, isn't it? I mean.
Well, it is, and whatever Chagos they push, that's what they'll be uptaken by a majority of the dairy farmers here. If they're not pushing it, it's not been.
Yeah, I suppose. Well,
and
actually,
then there's incentives to grow red clover silage or multi-species, and they're seen as a way to reduce nitrogen. So you're either putting on protected urea or you're putting out high levels of clover.
Well, protected urea, in my opinion, is nasty stuff, but this is what we were talking earlier about. If you have too much clover, you end up with too much nitrogen in the soil, and too much clover means nitrogen leaching, because there's not enough grass to take up the
Yes, in the wintertime.
nitrate from the clover, yeah.
But then if you don't manage it right, it'll die out, because if you don't, for the winter time, you have to leave a low cover on it.
Yeah.
And what we'd be trying to do...
Would you have red clover or white clover or both?
We have actually put in a small bit of red clover 2 years ago, but I think it's more or less it's gone out, but it's more just white clover.
It's not very robust, is it, red clover?
why do you think more people aren't doing this? Because it seems quite simple. If you're already fertiliser spreading, it's not even adding a job, really.
They don't know about it, first of all, and second of all, it's anyone that the governments aren't, or government departments aren't pushing. Like over here, Chagos doesn't push it at all, or have any trials on it at all.
Well, Susan's trying to sell it, obviously.
Well, what I find with my colleagues is that any change has to be farmer driven, because it's not coming from the top down. You know, it's not coming from the government funded research organisations.
It's coming from research, like to your business. You give Chagos over here money to research it, they would research it and say whether it's...
Yeah, somebody said, we'll do your research for £1,000 a day. Yeah, right.
I'd do it for that. Am I allowed to ask what your neighbours think? Do they see you as a source of inspiration, or do they think it's sort of?
I don't think the Enda and Michael tell their neighbours what they're up to.
You don't have to answer that.
No, they don't. Did he ask them what are you doing?
Right. So it's not. So they're not Because it is common, or at least where I am, to have like farm walks where people will sort of open their farm and other farmers will walk around. Because it's just interesting to see how people do stuff differently, and you can take ideas and stuff. Do you not have like that sort of exchange of ideas in a way that, I mean, it just seems like
with the robots, we do have open days, and I suppose very few locals who come to them.
Right.
More from around the country. There aren't any that wants to put in a robot like that's.
Come and see yours,
Come and see now a few locals will come, but
surely there is concrete numbers to show for what's happening here. Like, people couldn't come around and look at the soil in the way that they could come and look at the robots, but you do have evidence for it that is genuine.
We need to look through your milk records and all your soil, because you're analysing your forage every year.
we're analysing the forage, and then we're monitoring how much grass we grow every year.
Yeah.
So the grass, with the reduction in nitrogen, we're growing the same or a wee bit more than we were wanting out a higher nitrogen rate.
Yeah, and you say that the difference was potentially within a year.
Yeah.
When you started. Well, it just seems boggling to me that people wouldn't adopt it. As I said a minute ago, my hesitancy with Regen stuff is that some of it is nonsense. Do you think that the stuff that is nonsense just puts people off the stuff that isn't?
Yeah, I think people need to critically assess, the new products. I mean, I will see products, and quite honestly, I will see, what is this? And no matter how hard I dig, I cannot find out what it is. And some of these products are actually approved, by the organic associations, and I don't know what they are. Whereas I am totally upfront about what my products are. I mean, Humintec are not one of the world leaders because they're bad at their job.
Right. I think that in this it becomes quite difficult to distinguish what you're doing, which, as you say, has very concrete results and is very impressive, from the stuff where there is not really any scientific backing for it, but they say, the research hasn't gotten there yet, and you just have to trust us. You're not going to see immediate results, but you need to sort of trust the process. I mean, that's what they say, and that's nonsense. And it must be strange for you trying to sort of distinguishing yourself from those people when what you say is very similar.
But that is why, I mean, the Biostimulants Industry Council of Europe was pushing for legislation because the whole industry had got a bad reputation. Snake oil salesman being, one of the kinder descriptions. So they pushed, and Humintec, of course, are members of that, so they were pushing for the legislation. So the legislation is in place. It has been it was brought out in 2019. Everybody had until 2022 to get their act in order. But nobody is enforcing the legislation. And obviously Ireland is still part of the EU. It should be enforced, but nobody is.
So it's essentially an unregulated market.
Still, even although it's supposed to be regulated, but it's not.
Right.
I don't believe that anybody who's producing food of any description should be putting anything on their land when they don't know what it is. I mean...
Yeah, but there is a slight difficulty there in that I do believe you because Wikipedia agrees with you, which is perhaps weak, but
maybe they've been cribbing off my website.
Yeah, but you might have edited it. But we don't completely understand the complexities of humic acid, and as you say, because it's so complicated and also varies from place to place in that it's constructed of organic matter and organic life differs across the planet.
Yeah.
But if you have it, like I'm sure you could grade it, say, but you wouldn't necessarily know exactly what you were getting in the way that you would with, a nitrogen molecule.
Yes.
So
when I say to people, it's like, what they always said about Scotch whisky, all Scotch whisky is good, but some are better than others. So, probably any kind of humic acid will show some kind of benefit, but there are, are you buying a Rolls-Royce product or are you buying,
And there is a difference, is there, between types of humic acid?
Yes.
As in...
I think it's all to do with the basic raw material that went in millions of years ago, the different plants and the different trees. you know, that ended up in the raw. I mean, there's some very high quality humates come out of America. There's a whole seam that runs all the way up from New Mexico all the way up to Alberta and probably beyond. There's some very high quality humates come from there, but there's some ropey stuff comes from other parts of the world.
Do you consider yourself a regenerative farmer?
I don't know. I never really thought about it. I suppose we might be we think a bit differently, as in trying to get the most out of what we have and the inputs that we buy. And
right.
But that's always been your edge. You're always thinking a bit differently. That's why you were the first person on the phone.
Yeah, but see, I would argue
when these products were launched.
I don't think that farmers generally try to be inefficient, essentially. But you're saying that you're trying to be efficient. But I think most farmers want to be efficient, but there's obviously something that stops them investigating this sort of thing.
Do you think it's a fear of change?
I don't know. What led you to
well, I
doing
suppose, like, when you buy it's like buying the bag of Humates off you and you're telling it there's X, Y, and Z. But it's very hard to see that. You know, it's like easy to go out and buy a bag of fertiliser, pour it out, you see the grass will grow straight away. Whereas when you're selling, it takes time. You don't see it necessarily straight away in some cases.
No.
And that's what lads or farmers are afraid of. Once they don't see money back straight away.
It does take a bit of commitment. My worst nightmare is a fella who says, I'll take a couple of bags to try. Because I know perfectly well I'll come back the next year and the bags will still be sitting there and they won't have used it. And it takes commitment.
Yeah.
Whereas you took, I don't know, half a dozen bags and were committed to using it. But then I also had to go and analyse the grass and look at everything to convince you that it had worked. I think actually in the course of the discussion we've actually kind of got to the nitty-gritty of it, that, cut your nitrogen, improve your feed, increase your yields.
I think there will probably be a part 2 of this video because soil is very complicated. So do drop any thoughts and questions you have below. And I'd like to extend my thanks to Susan and to the Horgan family in particular for hosting us at their farm. Don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh, Jess.
She must be 8 now. She was just a puppy when I came here.
Yeah, she's